Hello, inmates, and welcome to week 65 of the cellblock Scorch. This is Lost, and I am here as the winner of this week. The prompt was given by Octo, and it was only the most unfortunate people have their shoes stolen. This week, I wrote a fan fiction for a original series on Wattpad called the Elysium series by Inkwell Hart. It has been a while since I've read them, and they're very good, very fun story, very good character detail, and she really does a good job of immersing you into this world and with these characters and really caring about them. So this week, I wrote a little bit about one of the kind of more side characters of the story, and I believe that I wrote it to coincide with some of the chapters of one of the books. I'm not actually positive on that, but I feel like I'm correct on that because of how I formatted it, because I formatted it with a 6 and then about halfway through the piece with a 9. I believe that the 6 and 9 line up with chapters 6 and 9 of one of the books from the Elysium series. The problem is that it's been so long that I don't know which one it is. So that's awesome. But I wrote kind of these chapters from the perspective of a more side character in the series named Madison. And without further ado, here is Madison. Six. The street urchins had always had it rough. Madison was no exception. This night was particularly bad, though. The biting wind went straight through his threadbare shirt and trousers. He hunched in on himself as much as he could, but it didn't seem to help. Everything was cold. Everything, that is, except for his feet. Madison had managed to swipe a sturdy, warm pair of boots on his last job. He hadn't worn shoes in such a long time that he didn't even know if they would fit, but they looked so nice and warm. With the weather turning, he couldn't help himself. He'd snagged the shoes along with the food. When he was sure he was safe, he'd tried them on. To his surprise, they fit him quite well, and they were light enough that they wouldn't slow him down. The new shoes had caused a bit of a stir with the other urchins, but ultimately they knew that Madison stole them fair and square. He'd also promised that he would keep an eye out for other shoes. He didn't want his friends to be at more of a disadvantage than he was. He was grateful for his warm feet, but he almost wished that he didn't have his shoes. That way, he wouldn't have something to compare the rest of his body to. He squeezed his knees tighter and tried to get a bit of rest. As his eyelids were closing, he thought he saw someone else enter the alley. Madison woke a few times that night due to the regular night noises, but he always concluded that he was still safe and went back to sleep. The last time he woke, he noticed that the wind had died down. He was feeling warmer, and going back to sleep was much easier. The day greeted Madison with a kick to his stomach. His eyes shot open and looked up to see a bobby standing above him. The bobby's face was contorted in a sneer, and before he could get one word out, Madison bolted. He knew that he had slept close to the general store, but he didn't think that they'd even come down this alley to check for riffraff, especially not so early in the morning. He kept running until he crossed Raglan Road. He couldn't hear the bobby anymore, and he was sure that he was safe. Even though it was a rude awakening, the running had warmed him right up. Now his whole body was warm, as his feet were. Madison looked down, and all he saw were his bloody, grimy feet. That run had not been kind to his unprotected appendages. Although his feet hurt, it wasn't anything he wasn't used to. Besides, he couldn't think about his feet right now. He had planned a job for today with some of the other urchins, and he wanted to grab some breakfast before they met up. He wandered the back streets a little bit longer, and then he made his way over to the baker's. The baker was always an easy target. It looked like he still hadn't learned. Madison could see the unattended table in front of the shop lined with freshly baked bread. Luckily for Madison, he was small enough that the workers couldn't see him when he walked in front of the table. All he had to do was reach up for a loaf of bread at the end of the table. It was the easiest meal he ever came by, but he couldn't do it too often, or the baker might change his display. He walked away happily, and he ate half the bread on his way to the meeting with James. They had planned to meet early since James said he was bringing someone new to help them. Madison wanted to get a read on them before they went into the job, especially since he was the one who set this one up. He saw James, and before he could call a greeting, James was already at his side, jabbering excitedly. "The new kid's here with me, and I think you'll really like him. I know I haven't said much about him, but I really didn't want you getting the wrong idea, so, here she is." Standing in front of him, Madison saw a scrawny little girl. Her hair was matted, and she wrung her hands nervously as she shifted her weight back and forth. Even as he was sizing her up, Madison could tell that she was doing the same for himself. Even though she was nervous, Madison could tell that she was deciding for herself if she wanted to work with them. He was glad to see the intelligence in her eyes, and he was ready to give her a small test. As he opened his mouth to tell her, he noticed something else about her, and his original thoughts were lost. All he ended up saying was, "My shoes!" The girl tilted her head and with a smile said, "Pardon?" You stole my shoes." Madison didn't know what else to say. The girl was clearly wearing his shoes. James looked like he was about to apologize on her behalf, but before he could get a word out, she twisted her foot in front of her so Madison could see the side of the shoe. Her words were lilting as she stated, "Oh my, only the most unfortunate people have their shoes stolen. Don't you think it's rather rude to accuse someone you just met of stealing your shoes? You haven't even introduced yourself." Madison was so stunned by her cheekiness that he didn't have a response. He just stood there with his mouth agape. "Name's Jen." Her hand was extended towards him, and he reached out to shake it. "Madison." "Well then, Madison, you seem to think I stole your shoes. But how is it that I could have stolen your shoes right off your feet? And when would I have done this?" Madison couldn't believe the gall of this new girl, but he was sure he had her now. "How did you know I was wearing the shoes? I could have taken them off. You're assuming that they were stolen off of my feet leads me to believe that you are the culprit. And I only lost them last night. I thought that I saw somebody before I fell asleep, and it must have been you." Jen looked like she wanted to argue, but instead she just sighed. "Good point." This stubborn girl, Madison was moved by, and he knew that they would be better with her on the crew. After all, she had stolen his shoes. It took some real skill to steal something that close to a person. It helped that he was sleeping at the time, but still, as badly as he wanted her to join, they needed to set a few things straight. "I like you, Jen. You've already proven that you've got real talent, but if you're going to work with us, we've got to set one thing straight. You don't ever steal from the other urchins. Every one of us is scraping by just like you are, and if we steal from each other, we add to our own struggles." Jen had the decency to look upset when Madison mentioned that they were all struggling, so he felt even better about working with her, so Madison continued. "Working with us isn't just about working together on the job. We also look out for each other at other times. Not that we have to give up what we have for someone else, but if we have extra, we share it." Telling Jen that reminded Madison that he still had half a loaf of bread. He tossed it to James, saying, "Almost forgot, but I brought this for you." A quiet thank you was all that James could stammer out. He was still shocked that Jen had stolen Madison's shoes. Madison was one of the best, and to be able to swipe his shoes, Jen had to be even better than he'd first thought. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause trouble. I've just been alone and was cold, and your shoes look so nice," she rambled as she started to unlace the shoes. "Please let me work with you. I promise I'll do better." Her apology was so genuine, and Madison had always been a little too soft. "You can keep the shoes. I'll find myself another pair." Thank you." "Finding new shoes will have to wait, though. We have a job to get to. Come along, Jen, and we'll introduce you to everyone else." 9. Madison had noticed that Jen had been acting differently lately. It wasn't a bad thing, but he wasn't quite sure why she was acting different. Ford was getting worse and worse because she kept missing her jobs with him because she was helping Booker Larkin. As far as Madison knew, Ford didn't know that she was working for Larkin. He didn't think that it was Ford, though. After the broken nose, he hadn't noticed any new abuse on Jen. Maybe she'd finally cut ties with Ford. He'd have to find her and talk to her about it. Since he had other commitments today, he couldn't go looking for Jen, so he decided he'd try to leave a message with the doctor. He knocked on Larkin's door. Then he waited, fiddling with his flat top hat. After what felt like eternity, he heard footsteps and the door opened. Surprise crossed the doctor's face when he saw Madison standing at the door. He quickly regained his composure and with a smile asked, "What can I do for you, young man?" Madison had never spoken to the doctor, and he was thrown off by the man's sincere tone. He must have stopped longer than he realized because the doctor took a small step forward and said, "Well?" Right. Sorry, sir, doctor. I was just wondering if you could maybe pass on a message to Jin for me. I don't know if I'll see her today. I haven't sent her out on any specific errands for today, and she only stops by if she's found something interesting. But if I do see her, I can certainly pass on a message for you. Okay, great. I just don't have time today to try to find her, but I would like to speak to her. Madison wasn't sure why he was giving this doctor so much more information than he needed to. Maybe it was because Jin trusted him? He continued, "If you see her, please tell her that Mads wants to talk to her. She'll be able to find me, so don't worry about that." The doctor smiled down at him, and he almost seemed to be laughing when he responded, "I'll be sure to pass on the message. Anything else you need?" "No." And with that, the doctor shut the door. Madison ran off to finish his errands for the day. He didn't see Jin at all, and he really hoped that the doctor had given her his message. He stayed up late that night, but finally his weariness overtook him. He woke in the middle of the night because he felt something brush his leg. As he pulled his leg toward his hand, he heard a whispered, "Drat!" He knew that voice. It was Jin. He looked across at her, and she had a mischievous smile on her face. She held up his shoes, and she said, "Only the most unfortunate people get their shoes stolen." Madison tried, but he failed to keep the smile out of his voice as he huffed, "Really, Jin? How long are you going to keep this up?" "For as long as we're friends. You've got to admit it's funny. Maybe I'll stop if you actually wake up before I have both your shoes," she said as she tossed Madison his shoes. "I guess it is. There are other things that I want to talk to you about, though. Did you finally break ties with Ford?" Jin looked surprised, and for a second Madison was afraid that he was wrong. But then she laughed. "How did you know?" "You've been happier."
Hey, this is Octa with Judge Comments. I already gave you my spiel about what this prompt was for, and it's a little funny. This week I got answers to this prompt that were very serious and heartfelt and, touching, and it was definitely just supposed to be a silly little thing. So you never know what you're gonna get. Fun facts. Lost won this week because I really enjoyed her. First of all, characters. It was a very character-driven piece. The other two pieces were more incident-driven, I guess. I like what Lost did here with the various little urchins and their little codes between themselves and trying to keep each other safe and stuff like that. Very good, very interesting. I also like how she slipped in some, character development and kind of showed the relationships growing in 2 pages or so. I thought that was impressive. So, Lost won for actually putting together a cohesive piece that showcased a lot of, thought and was very cute overall. The little running joke between those two is very cute, and I think it's fun. So, it was a touching little piece, and so it won. Keep that fire burning.
I hope you enjoyed Madison and you didn't mind too much my really bad character reading. I am not great at voicing characters and keeping it consistent, and then there's multiple people that I'm not paying attention to who's supposed to be talking, and so I'm sorry about that. But I hope it wasn't too bad and that you were able to look past the inconsistency of voice and enjoy the story anyway. I don't really have any much more to say about it, other than that I really like Madison, and Jin is also great. Even though we didn't see her much in this story, she is great. And she plays a larger role in the actual Elysium series. And if you were intrigued, I guess, by that, I would highly recommend going and checking out the Elysium series by Inkwell Hart over on Wattpad. It really is a good time, a fun read. I don't remember a ton because that's how I am, and it's been a while since I've read them, but it centers around kind of a mad scientist doctor. He's not like that mad, but everyone around him is a little concerned about him. And then he gets a new assistant, and she is a little bit crazy. Kind of not her fault, though, but she is. So, go check it out if you want to. I think you'd probably have fun with it, too, if you enjoyed a little bit of what you just heard from my Scorch. Anyway, on to next week. The prompt for next week, week 66, is a picture with text. A picture series, I guess, with text. And it is, you'll have to imagine this in your mind's eye. It is the prince from Disney's Cinderella when, at the ball, when, like, he's seeing multiple princesses. And so, it has one picture with him, text saying, "Time to be fabulous," and then you see him see a girl, and then it goes to him, like, yawning, saying, "Boring," and then another princess, and then him saying, "Pink and purple, what are you, the Cheshire Cat?" Then you see Anastasia and Drizella, and then back to the prince, "You have got to be kidding me." And then a picture of Cinderella running away from the prince, and the prince reaching out to her saying, "Don't leave me with these poorly dressed people." And that was my prompt for week 66. So, hopefully that made sense, and I hope you have a good week. Thank you, as always, for listening and for supporting. We appreciate it so much. I appreciate it so much. And until next time, keep those fires burning.
The Cellblock Scorch is a production of Stellacore, an independent group of nerds sharing their obsessions with the world. Links to all our projects, including Instagram, Tumblr, YouTube, Patreon, and Ko-Fi, can be found on our Linktree, posted in each episode description. Follow us on Tumblr or Instagram to see the prompt of the day before the episode drops, and a quote from each Scorch the day after. If you would like to support our creative endeavors, you can give a one-time tip to the Ko-Fi of the writer of your favorite Scorches, or check out our Patreon. There, you can access the Scorches and episode transcripts for free, or sign up for Spark level support for $5 a month to gain access to our embers as well.